Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I get to welcome my good friend Tyrone Hurst. Tyrone is a firefighter and EMS in Southern California. And this whole kind of episode, I mean, to be honest, we cover so much stuff in it, but I think I want to give that kind of overarching intro for this. That's all about that kind of gift of humor, that gallows humor, that dark humor, and how we kind of use it as a coping mechanism as first responders, as EMS, as firefighters, police, all of the incredible men and women out there. Tyrone and what he's doing on social media is just such a gift to the sector. It's exactly what so many of us need. His page kind of started gaining some serious traction during that COVID period, when actually this kind of gallows humor, this kind of levity and taking the rough with the smooth was just needed so goddamn much. But what a lot of people won't know about Tyrone, if they haven't had a chance to speak with him, is actually this guy's level of passion, professionalism, his self-awareness, and also his technical abilities. I mean, in this episode, we go into some fire suppression and ventilation techniques, talking about different methods. You know, we see a lot of stuff from a UK perspective of how the states fight fires. So we're going to go into a little bit of that method of attack, the BA tactics, and we'll also go into the call profiles, you know, what it looks like out there, the differences that different services and brigades and departments face across the world. There's a massive homeless epidemic that's happening in the United States at the minute. And this gives us a real insight into how people are trying to deal with that and how much it is such a perfectly wicked problem that doesn't seem like we've got a huge solution for at the minute. And so much of that is being shouldered by the firefighters and the EMS in America. So there is a whole host of stuff for us to get through today. A massive thanks to Tyrone for coming on and spending some time. Please jump into the notes for this podcast. You can head straight over Instagram, TikTok, some of the best ways to catch Tyrone and some of the just fucking hilarious stuff that he's doing out there. He really does well to capture the characteristics and the archetypes and the types of different characters we have on stations. You know, we always say that the fire service is made up of just incredible people, and it takes great characters to have a great culture. And the work that he does and how he shows that in the way of humor and satire is just incredible. So let's head in there with Tyrone. Thanks for coming back and joining us today, and I will see you boys and girls on the other side. Tyrone.
Hey, how's it going, Pete?
Yeah, I'm good, man. How you doing?
Good, man. Sorry about that. I had to do a couple link swaps and get myself over here.
Man, we're all good. Man, you're looking slick. The hair's good. You heading out tonight? What time of day is it there?
You know what? It's I just had a baby. The baby's got the morning. It took the whole morning, so I'm just getting my day started. It's about, as you know, it's 10:30 here.
Yeah.
And I got my studio set up, so it's probably kind of bright in here.
How's the family? Is everybody okay? Because you've got a couple of kids, haven't you? You've got another daughter. Have you got an older daughter?
I have 4 kids.
4 kids. Jesus, man, what's wrong with you? I've got 3 and I want 2. So, like, I feel like I want to give one away if I can. But did you come from a big family, or did you always want a big family?
I didn't know. I think 3 is a good, 2 is such a good number.
Is there much of a difference between 3 and 4? Like,
I think so.
You get a big family, is it just like, it's just rinse and repeat, or?
No, man. 4 is a game changer because you can't fit in a sedan or SUV. You got to get a van. You got 6 people now, It's
the vehicle change, right?
But I think it's cool because it's even numbers all around, and everybody's got someone to pair up with, and that's great. But when people say it doesn't matter after 3, I think it's a big difference at 4, personally. Yeah. So
I'm sure. I think like they think the family unit is something like 1 or 2.4 kids or something like that. But
yeah.
Did you come from a big family? Because you grew up. Where did you grow up? Because you grew up riding and stuff. I was stalking through all of your stuff and that, and you've got an awesome like eclectic background of riding.
Hey, you don't put it out there if you don't want people to know, right?
That's it, buddy.
You know what? I'm from the high desert in Southern California, and on my dad's side, my grandfather is actually a rodeo champion, and he rides horses, and he grew up in the summers riding horses, and I just kind of picked that up as my lifestyle. So I don't live on a ranch. I live in the suburbs, but we have a ranch with horses on it, and we go out there recreationally and everything like that.
What was it that you think like growing up around horses? Because we've got 3 horses, and I think it really adds like a different level of self-awareness, certainly from a kid. Yeah. Being around something that big and that powerful, it really kind of like dials you in to kind of like getting your shit sorted early on, if you know what I mean. I mean, like sending my daughter out in at 5:30 in the morning to muck out horses and stuff like that. She's got to have her head on a
Right.
swivel, because if the horse is having a bad day, you're going to learn that
Absolutely.
lesson really sharp.
Hey, man, it's all about respect and body language. Horses teach you a lot. Horses are teach you about hard labor
Mm.
and communication without words and respect. All the same things. I don't know. You can probably see back there my kids up there on the horse
Yes.
in the background there, but
I love what you said there. Communication without words. Communication without words is such a beautiful way to
absolutely,
put it, because you're like being
yeah,
around something early in the morning that is that, I say, big and powerful. It's really like humbling, isn't it? It puts you in your place when you're just like standing
yes,
next to this big life force and it's
right,
breathing and you can feel its power. Always like, it
yeah.
makes me realize, like I say, it's just really like puts you in your place.
Absolutely, man. And then you've got to be attentive, like you said. What kind of mood are they in that day? Are they acting different? What are the demographics of the horse? That all comes into play, So I think it translates really good into EMS too. You pick up on people. How are they feeling? Yeah, something's not right. I know the other day we had a guy with abdominal pain, and it was a BLS call, low level call, and something just wasn't right about him. And we upgraded it, and it ended up being a AAA aortic aneurysm, and he died in the ER. But picking up on body language like that from an early age, I think that probably has helped me. I don't know, in different ways, and probably you too.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together. No, 100%, my friend. And I think that I worry about people that don't get those types, not worry, that sounds harsh, but like I worry about people that don't get those kind of interactions, because there is, when you go into a room or you go into a situation, you almost have a heightened sense, like you say,
Yeah.
of your audience in that room, your positioning in that room. Because when you go into a stable and you're like, what is my positioning in this stable? Am I stuck
Right.
between the door and the horse? Do you know
Right.
what I mean? And then you kind of
Yeah.
start thinking about, what's my exit route? What's my exit plan here?
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to do if this thing
Mm-hmm.
loses its shit? And that kind of translates, like you say, when you go into certain environments, you're there to do good, but
Yeah.
it's like you've got to have your own, because I don't know what it's like over there, but here, certainly our EMS, like our paramedics and stuff, there's been a real heightening of attacks on paramedics, stuff like that. The fire department, I feel like we don't get it as bad, but obviously, I mean, the police, bless them, they've gone through some shit in the last couple of years, but it seems to be
Yeah.
bleeding over into our EMS and our paramedics. What's the, like, that sounds horrible to like attack rates, but like, what are people like over there in terms of the hostility or acceptance of EMS and fire
Where are you
department?
guys at?
So we're based in England. Kind of, we have similar evidence all up and down the UK. It's probably a little bit worse in places like London and Manchester and Birmingham and some of our bigger cities,
Right.
with all due respect. But collectively, I feel like the community or the public's attitude towards the emergency services is quite healthy still, but I feel like it's took a slide. There's like, it feels like, because we're associated with the government, there seems to be sometimes a level of distrust, which is kind of like harder. And also like the whole uniform thing, some people have negative associations with that. I mean, what's your experience has been like with it?
Well, the reason why I asked where you're from is because I'm being from Los Angeles. We're in a major city, and we have a homeless crisis, and we have Skid Row, which is famous around the world for
Man, I've seen some
having
videos of that.
people.
Shit, that is crazy.
It's pretty bad. The drug epidemic and the mental health crisis all whirlpooling in one, concentrated in one area. I think that the police, their responsibility in dealing with mental health and the drug crisis has really leaked over to the EMS side, because they have, hey, tactical pause, let's stand off. And it's a good thing. What's going on with this guy? Is he sick? Is he medically sick? And that puts a lot of strain on the EMS side, because now it's up to us to figure it out. And oftentimes it is mental health, oftentimes it is drug induced. We're
How
getting
do
in
you deal with that
scuffles
any
and
differently though?
arguments.
Because ultimately, if that person is doing something that
Hmm.
is hostile to the public or is dangerous to the environment, because they have a recognized condition or they have a protected
Yeah,
characteristic, or just because they have like a recognized, I don't want to say mental illness, but like there's mental condition,
yeah.
how that can't inherently alter too much how people deal with them, and you don't want to be standing off to the extent that they're a danger to themselves or the public. So that's a real kind of like moral dilemma, I suppose, certainly for you
Yeah.
guys.
It is. It's a paradigm shift right now from, hey, let's arrest them and take them to the drunk tank because they're drunk to, hey, okay, well, they trash everything. Are they under the influence? We need to take their blood sugar. Do they need to be sedated? Do they need to be restrained? Do they need to be handcuffed? And it's the police looking at EMS and it's EMS looking at police. And by the way, EMS and fire are all one. And we're all
Yeah,
like, well, are you got to do something? And they're like, no, you can you do something about it? So I think the problem solvers, the paramedics, EMTs aren't getting the credit. We're really having to make the decisions when it comes to these situations with violent people, unruly people, people under the influence, and police. I think it's better that they're taking a step back and we're actually looking at the underlying causes because, yeah, what do you think?
well, yeah, I think there's an aspect of you just perpetuate the problem if you deal as though everyone is a criminal, irrespective of their
Right.
vulnerabilities. But also, I don't know that that leads us any closer to what the solution would be with people like that. Because I see, we attend instances and we do a lot of gain entry for our ambulance services because they don't have powers of entry. But we obviously don't
Yeah.
have the upskill in terms of medical care, so we will give them powers of entry. But then often the reason somebody's not letting them in is because they don't fucking want you there. They're having a
Right.
crisis, they're having a mental health crisis or breakdown of some form. So we
Right.
then let them in. And this was kind of the question I was going to ask you, because do you have any kind of close quarters restraint? Do you have any restraint training or from the fire department? Or no, you see, because we don't either. But then once we're in there, and with the greatest
Zero.
respect, like a lot of our paramedics aren't trained either, and sounds horrible, sexist, whatever, but like the vast majority will be females, and I know it shouldn't matter, but viscerally myself, I'm like, let's just hang around to make sure everybody's okay. I'm not a hero, I'm not anything, but I'm like, we're all a bunch of big males, so let's stick around, make sure everybody's okay. But then what are we going to do? Because I will try and step in and restrain somebody or but it's not my job. And I'm not saying like it's not my job, but I shouldn't be doing that. That's kind of like it's a weird hollow
Untrained.
spot. Yeah, we've missed something there. And I'm not for
We're
a
not
second
there yet.
saying, yeah, and I don't know what that is. And also, there's been a great level of awareness over the past like 10, 15 years around mental health and sort of mental support for members of the community, awareness is like step one. It's like being like, I'm a recovered addict, and being aware of that is step one. But then what are you going to do about it? You can't just
Yeah.
continually walk around and go, oh yeah, I'm struggling, or there is definitely a problem here. Okay, we've said there's a problem here. I mean, and that homeless crisis. I mean, there seems to be no solution with that, because it seems like, and you hear a lot of it on people like Rogan's show and stuff. They talk about it a lot. They don't seem to. They seem to have made it comfortable enough that people are not incentivized not to do it. They're kind of sitting outside the realm of the law. And help me if I'm like missteading here, because I'm not familiar with the issue as such. But like, they're not inherently breaking a law, and there's also not the resources. Where would you put them? Do you know what I mean? But
Right.
I feel like you're going to keep recycling them through the system, going out trying to support them, but
Mhm.
there's no solution to it. I know that might sound a little bit pessimistic, but does that make sense?
Yeah, well, they're trying to solve it. They're trying to solve the problem without knowing the root cause. And
It's a bit like
unfortunately,
treating the symptom rather than the cause, isn't it?
correct.
You're like,
And they're raising a big fit about all the symptoms,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But the root cause of it is a lot of the people out there have the mental capacity and ability to refuse any services. So you could build a 3,000 facility complex or unit complex and you won't get three people to go in there because they don't want to be indoors. They don't want to be part of the government system. They don't want to be regulated. They don't want to be watched. They don't want to be told what to do. And that is a big part of it, I think, on the ground level. But I'm not trained in that. I don't know. I'm not a
No,
social worker.
I see what you're
But
saying, and
I'm just
also,
telling you what I see. We have our people. We tell them, hey, we got a place for you. We have a social worker. We have a room. I don't want nothing to do with that. Leave me right here where I'm at. Don't talk to me. Don't touch me. You know.
That
So
must be so goddamn difficult. How do you cope with seeing people in like that sort of challenging socioeconomic position whereby they're chill? But again, like you're talking, and I'm talking from my own bias. Like we grew up in a certain way with a certain level of economy, parents, whatever it might be. So we make assumptions, and like we see this in third world countries where we as a Western world will jump into a third world country and go, "Hey, you all need roads and TVs
right.
and houses," and they're like,
Yeah.
what the fuck for, you know? And then
Right.
we try and impose, because we're coming from our own subconscious bias, and
Yeah.
we assume that what we're doing is the way, is it must be the right way to do it, irrespective of the
Yeah.
hypocrisy, because we know that a lot of the child problems we've created are exactly, again, of our own creation. But we seem to try and impose that thought process on other people. But do you inherently think that they are happy, these people in those situations?
I think they're miserable.
Yeah.
I think that the way that they're living is usually because of addiction, and addiction leading to mental health leading to addiction, vice versa. They're one and the same, basically. And we don't have a solution. It's just so raw. It's so new. And the first time our EMS system has put out an update about verbal de-escalation for because they just have to recognize the crises that were going on. But the solution's far away, and it's going to take some people with high level of education and a lot of studies to really figure it out. But I think they're miserable. I don't think they're happy. But like you said, it's like my life is not that their way. So how could I impose my way of living on them? I don't know, but no human
Yeah.
being should be living like that for sure. I just don't know the answer.
How do you sustain the level of what appears to be from obviously me from the outside, your same level of optimism and positivity, but also like still treating people with dignity when they're in those types of situation? Because that's where it really comes back to your own morals and standards and your own kind of moral
Right.
compass. Some
Mm-hmm.
people just to have a complete disregard for their own personal welfare, and even sometimes the welfare of others, which can be, that's the moral dilemma that I see with so many frontline workers. And that's why, you know, when pay is not where we want it to be, or I worry that what's gonna continue to incentivize people to join, you know, for the first
Right.
responder community, if they're not getting paid very much, they see the way people are getting treated, unless they're romantic about it, like perhaps you and I are, then you can't a lot of the time it runs on passion, and that's a bit of a,
Yeah.
that's not really a fair idea of it, you know, because that inherently suggests that there is an element of lack of appreciation going on, but we're just relying on your goodwill and the fact that you love it so much that you're going to keep doing it. But I worry if the next generation will be as interested. When did you actually get into it? How old were you when you joined?
I've been doing this about 15 years. So
Okay.
21 years old, I got into the EMS side. I wanted to be a firefighter. That was my goal. And to get into the fire service out here, you got to go through the EMS service, or you go in through the wildland firefighting service. So I tried a little wildland, but it's seasonal and I needed more consistent paycheck. So I went to the EMS side, and I just ended up in there. And you know, to answer the question before about how do we do it, I think there's empathy is a big part of it. But first of all, you guys need to be getting paid more.
Yeah.
You want to incentivize people to do it. You guys, they need to up the pay. They need to up the benefits.
Well, you want
We
the
are at
best of the
risk.
best, like people
Yeah.
with a real strong moral compass, people with great
Right.
values, people with, you know, innovative ideas solving these problems. So in
Mm-hmm.
order to get those people into this sector, it's got to, you know, you don't want really well educated or really innovative or really driven people going, you know what, yeah, I always wanted to be a firefighter, but the pay's shit, so actually I'm going to go and do
Right.
banking, or I'm going to go be a lawyer, I'm
Yeah.
going to go do whatever. That is a crying shame, and then you'll never get maybe some of the mindsets that we need, because we can be
Yeah.
optimistic as we like, but I'll just speak for my own. I'm a knuckle dragging firefighter. You know, I don't, I'm kind of at the tip of the sword all the time. So perhaps I don't have the skill sets, but I'm willing
Yeah.
to lean in and support the people that can perhaps fix these solutions.
Yeah.
But it is a real conundrum that we seem to have backed ourselves into that corner. So you say you joined and you had to go through the kind of EMS route. For people that
Mm-hmm.
are unfamiliar with it, because there's
Yeah.
different, that when I speak to different people all over the world, the route into the fire department or the fire service or fire brigade, wherever it might be, there can be very different. Like Canada, they have to pay for all their own qualifications before they even
Really.
get in on certain departments. How does it work for you? Do you need a degree? Do you not need a degree? Do you have to pay for the courses yourself? How does it work getting in?
It's changed over the last decade, and I've been in the fire department for about 7 years, but and I think it changes county to county. But for California, there's a lot of professional departments, and the pay is better. And the governments, of course, I mean, California is, I think, the eighth leading economy, and so there's a lot of financial backing from governments. And because of that, because there's money, they also take on the responsibility of EMS to keep the budget up and everything. So out here, back 10 years ago, hey, if you want to get hired, you'd better be a paramedic. And yeah, you're going to put yourself through school usually on your own. And some schools are taking advantage of that, charging up to 20K when really it costs like $1,500 at the community college for a 1 year program. So it was getting pretty bad there. But now all you need is you've always only needed a high school diploma.
Okay.
And just an EMT cert, but emergency medical technician was the lower level. I'm not sure out there in Britain, but now it's gone to, hey, we need people that want to do this and are committed to it. And please, and they're having trouble finding those people. Where 10 years ago it was 20,000 people showing up for 200 jobs. Now you have like 700 people showing up for 200 jobs. So the requirements are a lot less. It's a great time to get into it if you want to get into a fire department career. And then, of course, a lot of people don't like EMS and they just want to do firefighting
Why is
because
that
of
though?
all the
Because
problems we talked about.
yeah, but like in the UK, so in the UK, ours is totally separate. Our EMS work
Yeah.
completely separate from our fire department, which I think is
Mhm.
a real shame. And like as our fire department is less busy for us from certainly from since when I joined, the kind of victim of your own success in that protection and prevention and all that sort of stuff means that things are built better, people are a bit safer. Technology accelerates in the way that cars are made and how safe people are on the roads. But now we're in a position where I feel like we need to start taking on more responsibility, expanding our skill sets, because we are, a bunch of, master problem solvers. I don't say that like master, but
Right.
I mean like that
We
the
are.
first responder is a problem solver. They turn up with a box of tools and they're thrown into trauma and or chaos, and they make, they make organized chaos effectively. And
Yeah.
I feel like we could have a lot to add to the EMS, and I would love to see us adopt not only because of the shared benefits in terms of training and professional development that we'd get from having ambulances on the same stations and all that sort of stuff, but NHS in the UK is such a colossal beast in comparison to the fire services and the fire department, and I don't know why we've not been able to bridge that gap. I'm sure there's lots of politics that I know absolutely nothing about. I'm sure I'm just speaking out
Mhm.
my ass here, but I really like the model that you guys have got. But it surprises me to hear that you say some people don't want to do EMS, because it's all about the kind of why behind you joined. If I like to think that the why is, okay, I want to help my community. So if you want to help you, there's loads of ways you could do that.
Yeah,
And then
that's
having those
true.
dual skill sets is great. But some people do, you're right, have a real visceral dislike to the idea of doing EMS calls. I don't know why
Yeah.
though.
Well, this is people of thrill seekers who seek out this job, right? We want to kick indoors. We want to go into the smoke. We bought into that. And I think all those things that are hardcore, everyone's into that. But for the EMS side, I don't know, man. It gets pretty tricky because of all the issues we talked about, having to deal with all the crises that are going on in society, economically. It all just comes down to like how you said. So
So on your stations, is there a clear divide between those who also respond to EMS calls as well? Is there those that solely ride the trucks, and then what's the kind of split? I mean, do you cross over and ride both skill sets? How does it work?
everyone gets their turn on the ambulance, and everybody gets their turn on the truck. It's there's a clear line of people who most people just don't like EMS because our system is so overloaded for us as firefighters. We're running 2,000 calls as a department a day, which is completely insane. A lot of companies are running 20 plus and even up to 30 calls a day. And one of them, this 1 square mile, you're running 30 calls, and there's six units, and each one of them are running 30 calls. It's crazy out there, like that Skid Row specifically. But for the a lot of people are kind of shy away from the EMS side, and I think the paramedics take the blunt of it. for, hey, we're the guys that are going to do it. We're going to get it done. And my series of videos I'm having putting out right now is
I just
about,
saw that one, yeah, where
yeah,
they were turning around to the crews and you were saying like, I'm the goddamn hero here. I'm the one that's actually saving you. And I love that.
they're not going to like that. Some of the hardcore truckies and firefighters aren't going to like that one, and that's okay. I'm here to talk. I'm here to open up that conversation. I'm here to show the paramedics that we're all feeling the same way. We're part of the crew, but this is about EMS. It's 90% of the calls. Come on. So I like the conversation. I'm also opening it up. A lot of people are holding stuff in. They're getting bitter. They're really starting, some people take it out on the community. They may not realize it. They take it out on their family, the frustration. I want to be a firefighter, but I'm stuck doing EMS. It has its issues. It's not necessarily always the best to mix the two together, because ultimately we all want to be firefighters.
Hey folks, just wanted to jump in with a quick piece around firefighter health and well-being. Whether you are trying to join the fire service and pass them tricky fitness tests, if you are currently serving, or if you are coming up to that next chapter of your life, retiring from the emergency services, we get so many different questions around it. So in partnership with Fitness for the Frontline, we have come up with a series of guidance and programs specifically designed to reflect the physical elements of the role of a firefighter. So whether it's carrying an LPP across an overgrown field, lifting a ladder above your head under running it, or wrestling with cutting gear for 30 plus minutes at some kind of complicated RTC, our bodies are required to lift, push, and carry objects in very specific circumstances. That is effectively what Fitness on the Frontline focuses on, as well as the longer term aspects of overall health and wellness for our firefighters. Now, we are definitely not about to be smashing out world records or getting that beach body ready in 6 weeks rubbish. The systems and programs that we put in place are adjusted for people's current fitness levels, and they're not a prescriptive weight or a one-size-fits-all BS. It is very likely for myself personally that I'm still going to be a firefighter when I'm 60 plus, so longevity in the role is really important to me, and I know it is for so many people out there. It all starts with no obligation, 7 days worth of the programming, absolutely free. So whether you're joining, serving, or looking at the next chapter in your life, Fitness for the Frontline is designed by firefighters for firefighters. Now back to the show. So talk to me for a second about, because you started your page back in 2017. For people that are not remotely familiar, I mean, we'll link it in the notes to this podcast anyway, but just give me a little bit of a background on when you decided to try and to mix in this humor and satire to genuinely address either some of the cultural stuff, you do some leadership stuff on there, and you kind of poke fun at some of the stereotypes that we see in the fire department. When did you first think like, fuck it, I'm going to do this thing? When did you have that kind of idea? Because you're putting yourself out there, and I love people that do that, because everybody wants to do it, everybody enjoys it, but it's hard, man. I mean, it's like you can feel like a real dick, and how do you stop that?
Well, I was just thinking, but I had very few followers, just my close friends, like 300 people, and a lot of people started liking it. They started sharing it, and then TikTok came around, and voiceover started to become a thing, and I realized, hey, I'm actually pretty good at this, because I'm looking at other people and they kind of suck. And the fire service, our department specifically, was entering a dark time with COVID, man. It was getting bad. Morale was terrible. There was a lot of people who were against the vaccine. The city's pushing the vaccine, and then they're also saying, oh, by the way, you're frontline to fix this problem, because we were doing vaccinations as a department. We took on that role for the city. We were doing all the 911 calls, the full arrests, cardiac arrests that were happening 5 times a week when it was once a month before, and just dark times for the department, dark times for morale, and in the station, boots on the ground. And I had made a few videos. People started laughing. I started rolling with it, and then someone posted my video. It got a lot of views. People hitting me up, hey, keep going for it. So I kept doing it. And then you keep getting better and better. But I've been doing videos, and I have a YouTube channel too, where I do some training stuff. So I've been doing it for a while, and the skill set just kind of, opportunity and preparation just kind of met right there. And I just went with it. I just jumped in. In terms of pullback, I get plenty of that. I've been reported by people. The department likes it overall. They just can't officially back me in any way. Obviously, there's social media policy, and there's all these things that I'm pushing it. I'm pushing the limits, but
Mate, you're
I
so
think
I'm not like I'm nowhere nothing like you in terms of the content and the humor that you
yeah,
do. But I always say to people, I'm like the canary down the mine. Do you ever know about the mining analogy? They put it down there, and if it dies, it's not safe for anybody else to go. Because I just
no,
shoot the shit, and I kind of like just say it how it is, and I speak to people. I never identify what service I'm from, but
right.
ultimately, I say to people, this the truth is what's actually happening out there, and my chief fire officer is kind of on board with it, and we speak informally, but again, professionally, he's like,
Yeah,
don't bring it anywhere near us because if you do, I'm going to have to shoot you. Do you know what I mean? He says,
that's pretty
you
much
step up next to
same.
us, I'm going to have to do the right thing, but keep doing what you're doing because you're having good conversations and you're doing what needs to be said. But just be
Right.
very careful because I will have to pull the trigger if you step out of line, and I don't want to do
And you
that.
know
So
what? You're very much a gentleman, and you're seem very professional on the backside. There are other people with podcasts or other people with Instagram pages, and their number one goal is to slander and destroy the fire department
that's what I'm saying.
as an
They've
organization.
got an axe to grind, and it's just
They do.
it's venomous. It's putrid, and I'm like, whoa. And I mean, I'm not the naive optimist. I'm not like pie in the sky. We're facing some genuine fucking challenges, and listening to the stuff that you're
Correct.
going. We're not pretending this stuff doesn't exist, but I'm
Yeah.
like, you and I have potentially got another 10, 15, 20 years left in the job, maybe more, but I'm like, so what do we want to be seeing more of? What do we want to be creating? What environment do we
Yeah.
want to be a part of? Because we are that culture now. When people say, oh, culture's terrible, the morale's terrible. Well, the morale is us. The morale is you, it's me, it's the crews, it's the guys, it's the girls that are out
It
there.
is us.
And where do we want to place our focus? Because that's where
Right.
all the energy is going to go. And yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
sorry to interrupt you, but that's you
No,
just triggered me there because
you
you're
hit
so
it.
right.
You hit it. That's it. And I've had people, hey, dude, the recalls, and that's when we are forced to work. We can't go home. And that was happening. That was another part of the whole storm for morale. Hey, man, your recalls out. And I was putting them out on Friday because we'd always get recall on Friday. Your videos, man, they're helping me get through it. And man, just really help you and help, thank you. They're just thanking me. I can tell I'm having a positive impact. And also, my department's super hush hush about our tradition and how we treat each other. And I'm just trying to shed light on, hey, this is what not to do. This is what you can do. This is what you're doing that's embarrassing. And I think in the humor and of all of it, we could just, I feel like get pushed through with the laughter of everything. And I feel like we have. I feel like we've pushed through. We've like made our name through this page, and people feel great that they are not alone in how they feel. And I think that's why the department's like, hey, we're not going to get involved if we don't have to. We will if we have to. We will take you down. I think they made that perfectly clear. But my motives are obvious. And if someone is out there reporting me for whatever reason and they're filing a complaint, I would question their motives. I would say, what is your reasoning for doing it? And I've played by the rules. I follow the policy now. I have my own shirt. I'm not at the stations. I'm not repping any fire department anymore. So I've learned to play by the rules too.
How do you keep your distance from that sort of that sort of mood hoover, blame thrower, negative input so that you can continue to have like an innovative, I'll say childlike, but that sounds condescending, but you know what I mean, like how do you
Like
stay in that?
playful.
Yeah, and but that's so important. But like
Mhm.
when you are doing the job that you do and you get, like we spoke about, empathy and empathy exhaustion earlier, it's really like sometimes I come back and I know I've got a podcast due that night and I'm like, shit, I just need to just walk a dog, and I need to just like
Yeah.
just go in the gym for half an hour because I need to
Mhm.
change my mindset. And I'm like, I have this thing when I say to people, we've got a tree outside our house, we've got a couple of trees and stuff, and I'm like, I have to almost like physically like pretend to pull a thought out of my mind and like I've got to
I
leave that out
understand.
here. I can't take that into the house with me because that is not helpful. But
Yeah.
that is hard, man, because your mind
Very.
just like I feel like I'm riding that reset button all the time sometimes. And I'm like, what do I want to perpetuate? What do I want to be about? Why am I putting energy into this? And I really struggle with that sometimes. But
Yeah.
and I know we always compare someone's, back or our backstage story to their like highlight reel. And I know some of this can't
Yeah.
be easy for you, but is
Mhm.
there a trick to that? Do you have just a great comedic timing?
Uh,
It looks easy, but man, I only have an eighth of an idea of how do you do it?
Well, I've had, breakdowns at work just from the stress. And I still feel that they talk about your cup, right?
Mm.
Every little bit, every little call, your cup starts to fill with stress and eventually it can overflow. I've had plenty of times where my cup overflow. I think for emotions, we have to give them time to pass, right? The river of time takes most things away. But if you're having really bad, strong negative emotions, there is a stronger emotion that is positive, and it's usually humor. And do you guys talk about gallows humor?
Yes, 100%.
Okay, so
Yeah. Dark
after
humor, we talk about it as well. It's
what do you
essential.
guys say?
We always call it black humor or dark humor
Black
because it
humor.
has to. I mean, people have stopped calling it black humor now because obviously the racial connotation to it. But dark humor is an essential part. It's a coping mechanism. Do you know what I mean? Like you come
Yes,
away from an incident and you've got to be able to say,
correct.
guys, when we dragged that bariatric guy out, did everyone see the fucking shit up the wall when he came out? Or like we're like trying to lift somebody out of their bathroom. They've been there for 3 months and there's a fucking cheese board or something random on the side, and you're like, what the?
Yeah,
Did everybody see the fucking thing on the side? And they're
yeah.
like, and then you just burst out laughing because you've just dealt with something horrific, and you're like, everybody saw the porno mag on the side, right?
Yeah,
just let me just check for a
exactly.
second. Everybody saw that, right? And yeah, you've got to inject that in because it. And some people, if they're new to the job, can see that as disrespectful. And you do have to know your audience. You have to not make sure the
Yeah,
windows are down on the truck. Make sure you're not sat in traffic. Make sure you're in a safe environment to do that. But I want to make sure that doesn't go as well because certain policies in certain departments and services are scared to death of the fact we may offend another member of the crew. Whereas, from
yeah.
my personal experience, none of us have a problem with it. That's a coping mechanism. If you lose that, you're going to lose a very important, like you said, the gallows humor. That's a coping mechanism.
That is our coping mechanism. Look what we have to deal with. It
Mm.
is horrendous if the public knew the things that we had to go through. And I think it was just me recognizing and everybody recognized, I'm not some like guru or anything. When we are at the table destroying each other and making fun of each other, it all evaporates.
Yeah.
Somehow it just all leaves and it brings us closer together, man. It really does. And I'm just tapping in to the well that is untapped. It's right there. It's full. The humor, it gets us through all of it. And all I'm doing is I have a little skill set that I developed. I have a way to portray it. I am helping it and I'm spreading it out, hopefully to a lot of people. But this is when people say what's going on, how you do it. This is what's happening in the fire station. We're making fun of each other. We're mocking each other. We're saying, man, that last bariatric call smelled just like her locker, man. And and everyone started roaring, laughing, and then it's better. It's a little bit better till the next one, and that's all I'm doing.
Where
I'm
did
just
you
showing
come up
what.
with? Who are some of the first characters you come up with? Because there's some regular appearances. You have the recruit, you have the captain, you have
Yeah,
the old hand on the watch. You got the MS guy, and so, some of the and then there's the captain
is the
who's
watch the
really.
truck?
Yeah.
Okay,
Fucking just some of them, mate. I just love it. Like I saw one the other week where like the really passionate guy comes round on Halloween and he's confronting you with his kid and the little dude is like he's got a mustache as well and his fucking
yeah.
I just love that, man. How did you start coming up with those and did anybody kind of like start saying, I'll obviously of course never ask you to name names, but they're like, hey man, is that Dave? Is that,
Yeah.
where'd you get that from?
They do like, hey man, who is that? Who is that? They're all on me, but I didn't have characters until I started portraying like one or two videos that people liked, and the whole senior firefighter character is actually we have these guys that are the most hardcore firefighters in the station. They're called apparatus operators. They drive the truck. They're truckies. He's fire all the way. He's the most highly trained guy, the most highly, and he's got the mustache is a stereotype that I added to so that you knew who he was because I'm only one person. So I have to add accessories so you can tell that I'm someone different. And he's very passionate about the job, and he's very, very skilled and he's kind of a rookie destroyer too. I think that's my department. We are known for kind of destroying rookies, and he's the epitome of that.
Okay.
And it started with him, but I started adding other characters because of all the dynamic in the station
Yeah.
and how it works out. There's the bull engineer with the mustache. He can make things better with his kind of lively attitude and doesn't take anything serious. You have the one rookie, the B shift rookie. he only wants to be the best as possibly can. You have the captains that's kind of sort of oblivious, but never truly oblivious to what's going on. But and there are people that I've taken bits and pieces of.
Yeah.
But the characters are a little bit of a lot of different kind of people into one. And that's basically that's the dynamic of the station, is what you're saying.
Talk to me about that leadership aspect then. So when we think of I mean, in that the context of the examples that you give on it, that individual is slightly standoffish, seems slightly like you say, unaware at times or oblivious of things that are going on, is perhaps a little bit more professional, kind of like political, and stays outside of the banter as such. Maybe pretends they're not hearing certain things and stuff like that. But in the individuals that you've worked with, and again, we won't name any names, but like, what do you think? How do you build a good team? What does good leadership look like? Because we say, oh, it's just natural, it's just in the culture of the fire service, but that's a bit of a trick. If we can't articulate it really well, then we're at danger of one day losing it. What some of the great leaders that you've worked with, what's some of the stuff that you think makes them good at what they do?
The department, I don't know about your department. Does it kind of seem paramilitary in a way? You guys kind of model?
So I mean, all the fire service stuff airs back from Air Massey Shore, from the London Fire Brigade. That's where a lot of the stuff was born, and that went over to Australia and the States and stuff like that. So it does all have a military naval like background to it.
Yeah, military naval background. So there's a separation from the front office, your chain of command and the crew, but then you have your members who are experienced and are locker room leaders.
Yeah.
Some of the best leaders that I I've seen are I love the word empathy, and they're sensitive and they're aware of what's going on with each individual member, and they're able to, just like with horses, pick up, hey, this guy's having a bad day, something's going on with him. Let me bring him in the office, let me talk to him. Those are the best leaders that have the ability to connect with people on a personal level. But also we do have a chain of command. So if you have a problem, you try to solve it on the lowest level, and try to keep things out of the front office, try to keep the officers out of it. And that's our culture. That's why I say that he's oblivious. He's not completely oblivious, but he understands the need to kind of step back and let the firefighters figure it out.
It's good if a watch or a team can like self-calibrate, isn't it? If it can calibrate itself, you should let it. As much as that might seem to some people like, oh no, it's your job to deal with it, it's your responsibility. No, because you would like the culture of a team to calibrate itself. Like you say, in the locker room of a great sports team, you would hope the older players, not necessarily the captain or the assistant captain, they should be the first one to say, that's not what we're about. What the fuck is that? Sort your shit out. That's not what we're about. It should never really get to that top level. If it does, that means that the teamwork aspect has ultimately failed. There's like a crack in the culture. But also, I love what you said there about almost like that emotional intelligence, where they can be in a room full of people and you're engaged, you're present, but you're also picking up stuff on the periphery. Do you know what I mean? This person's out of character today. This person's quiet. This person, okay, everybody else laughed, but how was that intended, and how did I see that received? And I try and pick off those moments with sort of my team, but I also find it hard because the inner child in me wants to get involved. They want to get in with the banter, but you can't have it both ways. Because if you become part of the banter and all the sort of shooting the shit with people, then people can see you as less approachable because they're like, you're part of this and you're condoning it or you're in on it. So it's like, you can't have it both ways, and that can be really difficult. I see that a lot. It's like a common mistake when you see people first step into a position of leadership. There's a couple of like early errors that people do, but they struggle to change gears. And I don't think you can necessarily have to stop being friends with people or anything like that. But there is a definite, like you said, there is a definite separation between them.
I think there has to be. Absolutely.
Do you think there's an aspect of having kids that makes, and this is kind of a biased question, sorry, it's kind of a closed question, is there anything about becoming a parent that changes the way you think about it? Because we said about our horses, and I always think like there's different levels of self-awareness. There's you as a person when you're a kid, then maybe when you get a partner and you start appreciating how you're actually coming across to another person that you care about, and then maybe you get a dog or you got a horse, and again that becomes another level of awareness around another living thing. But then when it comes to your kids, is really like that next level of self-awareness again, like how you intended to come across to them, what you intended for them to take on
Absolutely.
board. And that could, but some people, if they never have that, maybe they never develop that muscle. And I don't know
Hmm.
because I think being a parent means you're a leader anyway, whether you're in the front line or not. You know, you have to lead your family and guide people. There's almost like an unspoken mentorship that's happening there.
That's interesting. I don't know if I've been asked that question or considered it. I think that the challenge I see as a parent and what it plays is I have my work culture and everything that I need to survive, all the tools that I bring to work to be able to make it, and then I have my home life. I think that firefighters, because and paramedics and whole EMS service and even police, I think we should be really mindful about blending the two together and having a separation, a clear delineation between how I behave at work and how I solve problems at work, and how do I raise these kids to be good people. I don't know. I have to think more about, what do you think?
So I think before I had my kids, I was big on. I mean, I'm still big on self-discipline, but I've started to appreciate more that, as ironic as it sounds, that is self-imposed for me to. And again, I know I'm like a recovered addict, so the things that I do with myself and the disciplines I impose on myself are because I have an awareness that I have a problem with certain things, and I need to have coping mechanisms. And if I don't put structure in my life, I'm
Hmm.
at risk of slipping down those slopes. So I can fall off the
I
mountain if I'm
understand
not
that.
careful. But I appreciate my children. Certainly, like my daughter as an example, she's very different in that respect, and she's got such incredible. Like she makes me cry all the time. Like she's got such incredible emotional intelligence. And again, I don't know. And so, like as an example, my wife, who used to be in a relationship of domestic violence, and that's another example of where someone develops a very high level of emotional awareness through sheer survival instinct. And I think that has become a secret superpower for her. And that has sort of translated onto our children. And they are just so acutely aware of the way that people feel. So when I am struggling, like, God, when your kid comes to you and says, "Oh, daddy, you don't seem happy today. Is everything okay? Do you want to cuddle? You know what?" And I'm like, before
Wow.
I'd just be like, "Oh no, no," and I kind of lie. But now I feel like I wasn't serving my kids in trying to hide that. And actually, there's kind of a balance to be struck with vulnerability, isn't there, and honesty and showing that
Yeah.
it's okay. And I'm like, yeah, you know what, Dad is actually really struggling today. I can't shake it at the minute. But what you've just said to me has literally just blown me away. You've just taken so much weight off
Right.
Daddy's shoulders, and I just love you so goddamn much. And
Hmm.
and it's just like, yeah. So I don't sorry, I don't know if I've even answered your question there, but like
No, I get it, and I know exactly what you mean.
it's powerful shit. It's weird, and that's what I mean. It like this is what I'm saying. It opens up a whole new perspective of yourself. It's like realizing there's another side to the dice. You're like,
Hmm.
whoa,
Yeah,
shit.
that's
What is
true.
this muscle? I didn't realize I had this muscle. And like before I had my children, was that period of addiction, and like it was only when they were born I thought, am I going to be comfortable lying to them? Because I'm okay lying to myself, and I would lie
Right.
to my partner and stuff like that. But then they kind of force that extra level of, I don't know, accountability. You're like, am I willing to look at them and lie about the things that I do, lie about the person I am? Sorry, I don't know. I'm going really deep there, maybe, but
No,
it's
you hit
weird.
it on the head. The kids, yeah, I would love to say that everything I'm bringing to my kids is something I made up, but the reality is they're the ones who taught me it. They're the ones that have exposed my weaknesses. And,
Yeah.
my wife may call me out on something. My son may be acting different because of how I'm behaving. And they've caused me to check a lot of the issues I have. So it's
Mhm.
not me checking it before I get the door. I think they're the ones who are really teaching us. And
Mm.
that's where it comes into play, I think, maybe. I don't know.
No, no, I totally agree with you. It's like because they don't just learn what you say; they learn with their eyes, not just their ears. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So I think how will you live in your life? Because you can say whatever you like. You can be like, oh, make right decisions, try your hardest, do your best. Don't tell lies,
Yeah.
whatever. But they see what you do. They see the
Yeah, absolutely.
hypocrisy of our lives sometimes when we say try your hardest, do your best, and then you fuck off the whole afternoon watching TV and doing whatever, or you get drunk on a Friday night or something like that, and they're like, and then they say, "Oh, Daddy, that doesn't make sense," or "Why did you do that? Or why'd you get angry?" And you're like, look, don't do what I do as I say. Well, no, that's bullshit. I mean, so you and I may have been raised like that at times, or other people, but you're like, you know what? They should ask those questions,
Yeah,
and sometimes it frustrates us so much because it's true.
it is.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's why it cuts so deep, and it's something about the innocence and the way they deliver it. I wanted to, sorry if I got too much down that rabbit. I wanted to change gears for a second and just ask about, because you referenced sort of truckies and we spoke about some of the stereotypes there. I don't want to catch you out here, and if like we can edit this bit out if we go anywhere. But like, I wanted to ask about different sort of resources and command trucks and triples and the
Oh
truck
yeah.
companies and what the sort of layout is, because over in the UK we still have a lot of platforms. We have PRLs, we have WR. There's different combinations of vehicles, but the fact that you guys have a different skill sets and you obviously have the EMS, I wonder if you could kind of run us through. And in total transparency, I am kind of looking at the some of the departments list of sort of trucks in front of me here.
Mhm.
But if you could take us through kind of the differences between things like what if there's a truck company, there's a task force, there's a triple.
Mhm.
Where does all that come in, and what's the difference?
Okay, well, we're modeled after the Navy. Um, a lot of the people who came back from World War II and everything, the structure of our response to incidents is based on the Navy. So if they have a task force, they have their carrier and then their smaller support, their destroyers. I don't know all the terms for the Navy, but when we respond to structure fire, it's all based around fire suppression and fire support. And the
Okay.
fire support being the large truck with our 100-foot aerial ladder, and then our engines that are the fire suppression portion. And we have what is called a task force in Southern California, in the department I work for, where the main captain, your captain two, is going to be on the truck. The truck doesn't have a way to pump water, so there's going to be a second engine with the truck, and then there will be a third or a second engine that responds and has its own captain. So he will lead the team that goes into fire suppression, and then the truck will lead the team that does fire support and does ventilation. And ventilation is our big thing for the fire department. I think it's a really aggressive. We don't do a lot of transitional attack. We try to do fire suppression and ventilation. And because it's a more dangerous method, and because we have a lot more people, their training is really intense.
Hmm.
And that's why so much the AO, the guy who's driving the truck, he's in charge of cutting the hole in the roof. His job is the most dangerous. So as a result, he's the most highly trained. And he knows how serious this job can get when things go sideways. So he doesn't like a lot of BS. He only likes to consider the tactics that we're doing. He wants everyone to get home safe.
Hmm.
And I think he's misunderstood in that way. And I haven't gotten there. I plan on it eventually. I'm slow
Is that a
rolling it out
progression
there.
thing then for people to get to? Because I'm looking through and like, because you guys have even got helicopter teams and everything like that. But let's pause for
Yeah.
a second on that vertical ventilation,
Okay.
because this is a big difference between European or certainly UK firefighting. And you see the shit thrown every now and again back and forth about the dangers of going aloft when there's a known property fire and trying to get a vertical ventilation as a way of trying to get the fire to show itself and overcome issues or overcome the potentials of backdrafts or flashovers by allowing that
Yeah.
natural ventilation. So if I'm not taking in too much of a foggy area, like could you give us some reasoning for people that are completely unfamiliar, some people that just read the video or see the videos and read the articles and go, oh, someone hurt themselves or someone fell off the roof, and they go, oh yeah, because it's stupid and they don't know what they're doing. I'm like, well, no, there will be some genuine logic, and the construction of a lot of American properties differs greatly from the way we build our houses over here. So
Yes.
there's a different thought process that goes through it.
I think you hit the most important part of the end is the construction. What kind of buildings are you dealing with? We have a lot of our pre-33 buildings, which are unreinforced masonry and hallways without protection systems and multiple units. Ventilation becomes crucial because people get caught in the hallways. So they come out, they leave their units on fire. They leave the door open. The hallway fills with smoke. Now you have a fire attack team that needs to make their way in there, but is full of smoke. Well, if you have a team up top to open a hole, the smoke and the fire has somewhere to go. Does it increase the fire behavior? Yes, but if you're aggressive on your ventilation, you can be aggressive on your suppression.
Mhm.
But it's got to be coordinated. And
Do you
the
guys use
two,
fans at all? Sorry to interrupt you.
yes, we do use blowers as well.
Yeah, because like we
But
go for horizontal ventilation, and
right.
we'll get a branch or a jet on the ventilation. As soon as we've got the
Mm-hmm.
ventilation port covered, then people
Mm-hmm.
will apply a fan, and as long as we've got a flow path, then any sort of
Absolutely.
unburnt products of combustion that blow out of the vent theoretically will be extinguished by the covering crew there. But we do have
Mm-hmm.
a big aversion, sorry to interrupt again, about the
No.
vertical aspect of it, just because of the fear of, I mean, the obvious fear of people falling through the roof.
We do use horizontal ventilation as well, but vertical ventilation is kind of our bread and butter. I think there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. I think that the best fire department in the world. I think maybe that's a phrase that we've given ourselves. I think there's a lot of tactics and there's a lot to be learned. But just like that old saying, is the department. The one thing they fear is change.
Yeah.
So we're doing it. I don't want to say where, but in LA, we're doing it our way, and
I do love the
it
more
all.
aggressive approach, though, because we spoke to somebody from New Zealand, and he gave a great analogy of, yes, we can argue about risk prevention and putting in place safe systems of work before we get anywhere near the tip of the sword. But there's an argument for, if you never expose your crews to risk, then they will hemorrhage their skill set, their competency will hemorrhage because you're
Yeah.
never exposing them.
Mhm.
The more you can keep that sort of regular intermittent interaction with these hazardous environments, the more competent the person will be. Because if you never expose them to it and you're always going to defensive tactic, they will become less confident, and therefore they will become less competent, and that inherently heightens the risk that they're going to place themselves into if you ever do apply them into that situation. So there's an argument for both. Like,
Complacency, right?
even if there's people, not even anybody in the property, I would still like to commit crews because I want to put them in a live fire situation, because they're going to get an opportunity to do those fire behavior tactics, then rather than some people will go, there's nobody in there, let's just fight this defensively, let's just step back, we don't need to take risk if there's no savable life. And I'm like, but this is an opportunity for the team to demonstrate their skill sets. And people are like, yeah,
Mhm.
but I could never justify it if somebody did go in there and die because the building collapsed or there was a flashover or whatever. There was no need to put anybody in. And I don't know. Everyone has a different risk appetite, but, and I don't know. Maybe I'm just like, my own mental bias is telling me I just want to get people in there because I enjoy doing it myself. But
Yeah,
where do you sit on that? Is that making any sense?
yeah, it is. I think that's a hard question to answer, even for the chief himself or
Mm-hmm.
herself. So, on my level, I can only say is that we are trained the hell up. Our probation is very hard, and we are pit bulls on a leash, and we are ready to bite at the job that we are given, and we are trained to be aggressive. And it's the leadership's job to mitigate our aggression and make decisions based on. And we've done leaps and bounds since the time I've been on, in introducing different types of profiles and risk analysis versus. You guys are going to go in there, you're going to kick the fire's ass, and at the end, we're going to talk about how we could have done it better the next time, and that's our culture. But I think it's hard. There's so many ways to do it. It's a hard question to ask, even for a chief, I think.
Because also the amount of water that some people place into properties, like, I've always thought we fucking wash the house down the road sometimes. We can do just as much damage through over application
Oh,
of
100.
water. And that's
Mm-hmm.
where that, compartment fire behavior training and a good understanding of fire dynamics and water application really, because I
Mm-hmm.
know in America there's a greater approach to straight bore attacks, and the way that your hose patterns can be a little bit different. Whereas we've got this, a lot of it came maybe 15, 20 years ago when we started doing gas cooling, and there was a lot of science behind water droplet sizes and,
Uh-huh.
dispersion of combustible gases and all this sort of stuff to try and, but ultimately that pendulum can swing too far as well, where people just gas cool, gas cool, gas cool, never put any fucking water on the fire. It's never going to fucking go out. But I
Yeah.
see, from the limited vision that I have and the limited interpretation of what I see, there seems to be a tremendously higher emphasis on volume of water, that seems to be associated when I see firefighting techniques in the States. And I don't know, maybe that's just because of the stuff I've seen.
I think it changes fire department to fire department.
Mm.
We
How long is your
have
training?
Oh, training never ends. The
Yeah,
training never
good
ends.
shout.
We have our drill tower that used to be 20 weeks and they got cut down to 14 because of some staffing stuff we need to pump people through. And then the probation is a year long. And the probation is really where you get really where you go through it. And every day you're giving 1 to 2 drills, you're throwing every ladder. Every day can feel like a drill tower day when you're on probation, especially at a truck house. We want to make everything muscle memory because we don't meet in the front of the rig and say and have our captain tell us, hey, go in. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. I want you to do this. Like the show 911, they always do that. I want you to do this, you do that. We don't do that. When we stop, it's like a well-oiled football team in their tactics. Everyone breaks off. Everyone has a job. And if everyone does their job, the orchestra, the play will go smoothly. No one talks, very little like interpersonal communication. We have a forcible entry guy. We have this, and you have to know every position on the team to be on the team because we're going to run this play when it's this building, So I think that's our training of being a year long, and it's so intense because there is no huddle at the front. It's ready, set, go.
Do you all wear breathing apparatus sets as like standard, don't you? So like we tend to get off the trucks, and then if we believe they're required, we'll kind of detail 2 people as a minimum, team of 2, and then we have big like entry control procedures for breathing apparatus. Sorry, so for BA sets, but it seems to be that you guys and girls will kind of make your own dynamic risk assessment as to when to don them and when to go under air. And that is that just a decision that people will make themselves, or because it doesn't look like you have any form of like entry control. And what I mean by entry control for us, it's kind of like a board where people put in their tallies. We have tallies that has an electronic communication to the set itself, and it allows us to understand how much air that person's got left, what the internal temperature is, where they are. I mean, is there a similar system to that, or are the crews just kind of like self-deploying as to when they believe they need to put their sets on and when they don't?
People are putting their breathers on as soon as they need them, and the crews operate. A company is going to work as a crew, and whoever's lowest on air, that's how you're going to know it's time to back out. And it's not being tallied how much air you use. I think that our department is where I'm at. It's like, hey, if you use a bottle and your crew has to back out, go put on another bottle and get back in there, so it's not being monitored closely. That kind of tactic hasn't reached us yet, but breather up, people are breathing up a lot sooner than they were 30 years ago. And even 60 years ago, when it was, you better not wear a breather. We're going to breathe use our mustaches as a filter. Do you guys ever talked about that?
Yeah, well, no, I remember when I joined, right? I one job in maybe it was like 6 months in or something like that. And I remember being at the landing, the top of a set of stairs, fighting this fire into a bedroom. And my station officer, or captain, as you might refer to it, just fucking crawls up the stairs behind me, fucking thick as anything smoke, and tugs on my leggings. And he's like, "We're going to send another crew in behind you." And I'm fucking looking at him. And the fucking, there's smoke down to like waist level. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing in here? Do you know what I mean? And like, it seems in the last decade, there seems to have been unfortunately, a greater level of awareness around, well, it's good that there's a great level of awareness about firefighter cancer, but that's come because people are retiring from the job and getting cancer in their 30s and their 40s.
And they ain't living very long.
No, and that's it. So that's kind of, because it used to be when I joined, oh yeah, I stink of smoke, and I'd go home and my kids would smell it and they'd be like, "Oh, Daddy, you've been to a fire. Tell us about it." And my kit is still gassing off. I've still got fucking, and it makes me feel a bit bad now. I've still got carcinogens gassing off in my house, in my living room, in my car. I've got the kit in the back of my car and it stinks. And you just didn't think about it, or I certainly didn't.
Absolutely. SCBA culture, luckily, has changed a lot, and people decomp procedures and everything have increased a lot, and people don't want to have a kick-ass fire career and then just die from cancer. And the big mustache thing is so important too, to portray a firefighter, because they were using that as a filter to breathe. you lift your lip up, you get your head close to that nozzle because the nozzle's pushing fresh air. You fight fire going in like that. It used to be a badge of weakness to wear your SCBA, and that's changed. That's 100, a complete 180. You put it on as soon as you are about even outside of the structure. If you're close and you're eating smoke, you better have it on. Don't breathe any smoke. And wear it during overhaul. That's our thing. Wear it during overhaul.
Yeah.
So it's changed a lot.
So just sorry, I know I interrupted you. I'm terrible at it. I tend to get too excited. But like, so you started as EMS. Everyone, or you saying most people have to start as EMS to get to the fire department. When you get on there, what's the base level? What's the rookie tasks? What truck do you start on? And when and if can you move up to those aerial ladders, those the ventilation crews? Is that an experience thing? Do you have to wait for the jobs to come up? How does that work?
When you come on, there's two types of companies: an engine company who's going to put water on the fire, and a truck company who's going to be on the roof cutting a hole essentially and doing forcible entry and some other support functions. When you're on probation, you'll start out either on the truck or the engine. You'll learn how to do both jobs, one position only, because there are multiple positions. Then if you end up at a station, because like I said, our whole model is anyone can play any role on the team, but you got to know all the roles. You got to have like muscle memory. So if you end up on a truck, the experience of where you're riding on the truck changes depending on your level of experience. If you have a low level experience, you'll be riding the top member, you'll be throwing a ladder, you'll be sounding the roof for integrity. If you're we have the most, like my senior firefighter character, you'll be operating the chainsaw and leading the team, and then he has a guy behind him who has the second amount of experience. So that's how it works: is you are one or the other, and you learn every position as your career progresses.
But is it kind of like dead man's shoes, if you know what I mean? People never get to those positions unless that person retires, ultimately.
Used to be.
Yeah. Yeah, that made it always really difficult and stuff like that. You also still have like urban search and rescue units and heavy rescue units and hazmat units. Are they kind of like regional assets, or do you have them per station, or how much? Because they came in the UK regional. Kind of like around, it was part of a New Generations project after we'd had some of the big terrorist attacks effectively, and we started bringing in all these things to accommodate for potential collapse structures or explosive devices and stuff like that, and some of our chemical units and our mass decontamination units in case there was acts of terrorism. But again, is that a special company where you just kind of have to apply for those skill sets?
Yeah, they're at specific stations, and then they cover regions, and they're properly spread out for response time. So we have enough USAR units, we have enough hazmat units to be able to reach any part of the city given a period of time. Now, if you want to be part of that, you simply transfer into that station that has it, and you get trained up, and you get certified on each rig, and you can seek that out. It's there for you. You can do whatever you want. We even actually train our own pilots. We don't go out and actively hire pilots to fly the plane right away. We will train you from probation to be a pilot. And that's why that is our the unique.
Because that's one of the things I was looking at there. Because there's like seven helicopters in the department that can be used for either EMS or fire, and I'm just like, wow. Over here we have like we have that for EMS. We have flying doctors and helimed teams and stuff like that. But again, it's dead man's shoes, and I think you've got to have like a minimum of 5 years operational experience as a paramedic before you can even apply for those roles. But that's got to be a hell of a cool thing. What do you have in mind for yourself? Do you see yourself? Do you have any like boxes you want to tick in your career? Is the skill sets you want to acquire? Do you think you'll stay in the job a long time, or do a leadership development?
I'm doing 33 years.
33 years. That's very specific.
Yeah. Well, that's how our retirement works.
Yeah.
So after 33 years, you get your max pension. I plan on doing all 33 years. I really want to be a driver. I really want to be an engineer. I'm still working on that. That'll probably happen within the next year or so. And then from there, I'll have to decide. I know people are pushing me to go the leadership route. and there's, money to be made in the chief's position. I think that what I'm doing now may actually hinder me in the future on that. There'll be
Yeah.
some unanswered questions and some things that I'll have to atone for. But ultimately, I'm being told to repeat an oath. I'm being told to repeat our core values. I'm being told to repeat our mission statement. And then when I'm in the station, not everyone's living up to that. So it's
Mm.
kind of like that thing with your kids. Hey, you can talk all day. If you ain't living it, who are you? So
Yeah.
I feel it's more important to do what I'm doing now to change the culture. I think that
This is
I've
what I'm
gone
saying, mate.
I've
Yeah,
gone for
sorry.
the
You're
throat of the
right.
culture.
Yeah.
Not the department, not the department, not our core values, not our mission. I'm going for the throat of the culture. We have to treat each other better. We have to squash some of the stigma about being a paramedic. We
Yeah.
have to treat rookies a little better. Rookies got to train a little harder. People have to take the job serious because there is no other job. Well, there are a few, but this job, you come to work and the guy or girl you're next to, you could die with them. So
100%.
how we
I
treat
see
each
what you're
other,
doing now as that
yeah,
new. It's the new innovator. It's the new trailblazer of old, where you are walking
yeah,
around the station and you're shining the spotlight into the cupboards and into the corners where people don't want to look.
correct.
They know there's some
Hmm.
shit there. They know there's some filth there. And I think I'm obviously, again, romantically would like to disagree with you that this stuff will come to haunt you. I mean, it will do for a little bit as the older hands, the
Hmm.
people with, they don't get it. They just think it's bullshit. They think it's, whatever, ego massage or whatever. But the groundswell, the younger people, the amount of recruitment that you're probably going through, those people engage so much with what you're doing because they see
Yeah,
that, and this is the new generation. This is how they communicate. This is how they engage. This is how they onboard
yes,
their information. So as the crest of that wave starts to become the majority rather than the minority, I think what
correct.
you're doing and the way you're communicating it will just be, it just screams authenticity to a
Yeah,
new audience. Do you know what I'm saying?
absolutely. I'm thinking about the wave behind me. The
Yeah,
wave
man.
in front of me, they're on their way out. But what are we going to
Yeah.
be left with when they're gone? We're just going to pretend to be that guy with 30 years on who's fought every fire and lost friends on the job. We're not going to be that guy. We're not going to, we don't have his life experience. Why are we pretending to try to be that? It's really a warning.
Yeah.
Don't pretend to be that guy.
Hmm.
Don't be the boot firefighter with his boots unzipped and the lipper and all that stuff and the sideways hat. You look like a fool. So
Yeah.
maintain your profession. It's really that's what it
Yeah.
is self-reflection.
Love it. I want to be super respectful of your time and my family and the kids and all that sort of stuff. So I wanted to kind of close by maybe asking for people coming into the job now, because with the and this is kind of like the purpose of the podcast, because like people are not going to read the magazines, they're not going to read the articles, they're not going to go and do the case studies, they won't even read the manuals anymore. They'll get the information from you, and maybe I humbly could maybe put myself somewhere in that bracket as well. They're gonna. That's why we do like incident debriefs and stuff on the podcast, because people are gonna, they're not going to go back and read it anymore. Then it needs to be in a new format. So what you're doing now and the morals and values that you're communicating, what kind of advice would you have for somebody coming into the job now? Some of the do's, some of the don'ts, some of the things that maybe like the worst pieces of advice you were given that were complete bullshit when you came into it.
I would say study yourself, learn your weaknesses. There's a really good book. It's called Never Split the Difference from Chris Voss.
Yes, Chris
Have you
Foss.
read
He
it?
was yeah, of course, that man. He was the not MI5. He was FBI hostage
Yeah,
negotiator.
I
Fucking
love that book.
great book. Such a great book.
I've very few people that have written that book. And
Oh,
there's a
mate, it's
thing
great.
called tactical empathy, in difficult conversations. And if you're coming to work and you have a weakness, you need to improve on yourself. You need to start reading books. You need to start actually working on those things because the job requires so much of you personally, from your soul, your heart, yeah, all the things that you take, all your own personal core values. If they're jacked up, they're going to get worse. So
Mm.
improve on yourself. But the job is like a call for humanity. It's humanity's call from humanity, and
Yeah.
we're answering it. So when you get there, don't try to bring as little baggage as you can. I'm not saying I'm out there every call, every customer satisfied. I've had people who are unsatisfied and are upset with my attitude, and it's 2 a.m. and I just, you're calling for a cough and it's annoying as hell to me. I'm trying to work on myself, and you guys should try to work on yourselves too, because
Yeah.
you're gonna need it.
Man, I love that. Absolutely love it. Look,
Yeah.
brother, thank you so much for your time and your generosity. This is one of my things I love so much about it, is speaking to people all over the globe, because there's so many correlations, and it kind of makes you feel less lonely. It sounds horrible, but like, to maintain that level of serial optimism, it can be fucking lonely sometimes. And I really love what you're doing. I think it's absolutely incredible. We will drop some links and stuff into your pages below, but please send my love to the family. Please send my love to the team and everything like that. Look after yourself, my friend.
What kind of horses you got?
We have got an Irish sports horse. Her name is Mary. She's 17 hands. We've got an Arab, who is about 14 hands, and that my wife rides the Arab. I ride the Irish sports horse, and then we've got a cob. Do you know what a cob is? It's kind of a UK term. It's kind of like a mongrel type. They're a bit fat and they're a bit waddly, and that's what my daughter rides because it's just safer. He's just like he's nice and steady. But I don't ride as much as I should do. But hopefully my wife will get us back out there when it starts to get warmer. But send my love to the family, my friend, and I'll be in contact soon. All right.
Well, let's do it again, brother. I have no problem talking with you. There's a lot of podcasts, but I like how you run it. I like your demeanor and everything. So anytime.
Thank you, my friend. I'll speak to you soon. All right.
Thanks, brother. All right. See ya.
Firefighters podcast is put together to develop, inspire, and hopefully even motivate those individuals who have chosen to serve our communities and be part of the first responder family. It's brought to you by myself, operational firefighter Pete Wakefield. If you have enjoyed today's episode and you want to see the podcast continuing, please head over to our Patreon page where you can support the ongoing efforts of the podcast. Please hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on whatever platform you're listening to. Please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.